Welcome back. Another episode of Life and Times of Tubbcity. We got a special interview. I've been waiting on this, trying to get it done. Got it done. Good intro, quick intro. We got Idaho Vandal alumni, former coach, San Diego State, former coach, recruited Heisman candidate, NFL Hall of Famer Marshall Faulk. Won a national title at UM, Coach Reggie Wayne, Santana Moss, Andre Johnson, recruited a million guys there. Won a Super Bowl with the Saints. Former head coach of Tulane, current head coach of the Houston Gamblers for the USFL, and my uncle, Curtis Johnson. Appreciate you for coming.
What's up, Tubbcity? I'm glad. Look, I'm glad to be invited. I thought I was kind of getting kicked out the family a little bit. I never got invited. I see all my friends on here, but we finally gonna make this happen.
Good.
It's gonna be fun.
Yes, I appreciate it. Life and Times of Tubbcity. The first question is always, I have people, family, I have friends, and the first question is always, what is your first memory of an interaction with me?
My best memory of you, and I bet you know this. I was there when you were born. That's first and foremost.
Yeah.
It was there. But man, the first interaction, I remember going to Bossier City, and your mom would say, your mom, who's my sister, she would say, "Watch this boy go to sleep," and he would just raise up and hit his head on the pillow. Bam, 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 bam. I thought you had brain damage or something.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you just fall asleep. Then one time you were on a top bunk.
The wood bed.
With the wooden bunks. And one time you hit your head on the wood on the bunk, and that was it. That was the end of that. But that was the most memorable. I felt sorry for you at first, man. I thought something was wrong with you.
Yeah, I used to have a mark on my head from all the beating on that. I remember that. Let's go back. All those accolades that even more that I just named, but you come from a small town. Where were you born?
I was born in a little town called St. Rose, Louisiana.
Yeah.
It's in one of these parishes down here in Louisiana. We're the only state that we don't have counties. We have parishes. Yeah. And in these parishes, they call them the river parishes. Great athletes come from the river parish. I think it's because of the water. We're right along the Mississippi River, almost to the crest of the river. And man, there's some great players that came out of the river parishes. So
St. Rose, home of Ed Reed.
Ed Reed.
Okay.
Ed Reed. One of my favorites.
Yeah.
So I met Ed Reed when he was about 10 years old. His uncle Otis, we played against each other in competition football. I went to one high school, he went to another, and he would always tell me when I'd come home, and everybody called me Tiger. He's like, "Tiger, I got one for you. And it was a little bow-legged kid walking up and down First Street. Look, my town's so small, we only have 4 streets, and we weren't very creative. So we called it First, Second, Third, and Fourth Street. Those are the 4 streets. So you understand how big our town is. And so, man, Ed would come walking, and he'd come, and I look at him, I'm like, this kid can't play. And so then, as time went on, he started getting his name around, played on a good Destran football team, but, man, Ed played everywhere. I mean, it was weird. And I kind of didn't know how to present him to the University of Miami because, man, Ed was the quarterback, the fullback, the tight end, the wide receiver, the safety, the linebacker. He'd rush, and so when I presented him, this is a true story. It's funny. It's funny. So back then in recruiting, when Ed got to be a senior, it wasn't an early recruiting or anything. Ed didn't have much going. It was Tulane. He was actually going to Tulane, who's doing a great job now. But man, me and Chuck Pagano. Chuck Pagano was our defensive back coach at Miami, former head coach of the Indianapolis Colts, great career, great pro career. Was coordinator with the Baltimore Ravens and, our coordinator at Miami at one time also. So Chuck was like, man, I'm not sure about Ed Reed. If you know anything about the University of Miami, we're limited scholarships. We're on probation. Just, And so I was like, man, this kid is good. He could play somewhere at Miami.
This is 98?
This is 90, no, it had to be 96.
96, okay.
Because there's a story why you, I know why you think it's 98, because Ed and Reggie came in together, but Ed didn't play his first year because we were playing basketball on Country Walk and he twisted his ankle, if you remember. And so he sat out the first year, which was a blessing in disguise.
Yeah.
So he didn't play the first year, whereas Reggie and Santana and those guys, they played their freshman year. So back to the story. So we drive in, and Chuck Pagano's brother was coaching at the Saints at the time, and John was like, "Hey, can I come ride with you guys down to Death Strand? It's a 15-minute drive from the Saints facility." And I was like, sure. So we get in the car, and man, we go to the back of the building, and Coach Robichaux, that was his coach, he was talking about Ed. He wanted me to take Ed to go to Miami. Miami had won national championships, stuff like that. And so we get to the gym, and so Chuck said, hey, look, we don't have enough scholarships. We won't take Ed Reed. We're gonna get him on a track scholarship, because Ed, I don't know if anyone knows, but Ed threw the javelin. Ed won the Big East in the javelin. One throw, one time. What? Javelin champ. Just got out, took off his shorts, took off his sweats, just threw it, went sit down, threw it one time, and won the championship in the Big East for the javelin. So we put the film on. I say, look, I got to go. I said, Stephen Robichaux is one of my friends. I went to school with him. He was the coach at the time. All of Tim Rebo, all those guys were there at the time. And I was like, man, I got to go tell these guys. And Chipper Simon was the principal. I got to go tell, or was associated. I got to go tell these guys I'm not taking Ed Reed at Miami. So I begin to walk out the building. They watch the film. Chuck comes sprinting out. Wait a minute, CJ, don't do nothing. Call me back. He said, listen to my brother. What my brother got to say. This was John. He was coach at the Saints. He said, look, I don't know if Ed Reed could start for you guys at the University of Miami, but he could start for us at the Saints. And that's why we took Ed Reed.
Wow.
Yeah. We were thinking about trying to get Ed Reed on a track scholarship.
Yeah.
Burton Burns was waiting for me to deny him so he can go to Tulane. But it was a good story. It was a great career for Ed at the University of Miami.
Fun fact for Ed, I have his high school highlight tape that I stole from you in my collection.
I bet he played everywhere.
Yeah.
He was a fullback. He was everything.
He was doing everything.
Look, here's the thing about I still remember the tape. If you remember the district championship game, he catches the ball on the sideline, get his feet in on one interception, and then late in the game, he intercepted the ball, last play of the game, and returned it for a touchdown. Yeah. That's how they won the district championship.
Yeah. And he put 2 kids in an ambulance.
Yeah, knocked them out.
Yeah.
Knocked him out, man. He was amazing.
Yeah.
Guy was.
I remember, and I'm sure he don't remember this, but when we moved to with Papa,
yep,
and I went to Destrehan, we would play basketball in the back.
Yep.
And Papa wouldn't let me go, and then you like, oh, let's go, you know what I'm saying? And I just remember him being able to jump so high. It was insane.
So athletic for a kid. Now I had to tell you, he's been 6 feet all his life, and he could do it. Man, he was. If you ever think about basketball, Michael Jordan, it was him.
Yeah.
It wasn't all those other guys. Then we had some guys on the UM team that can really play basketballs, and there's stories behind all of them.
Yeah.
I mean, what we've seen there, man, it was some amazing athletes. But man, he was the Michael Jordan.
I'm gonna get back to St. Rose, but I don't know if you remember this. I interviewed Swayze too. Mm-hmm. The hardest basketball game I've ever played in my life. Do you remember that game? You don't remember? It was me, you, and Swayze.
Against?
K.E., Greg Olson, and Darnell Jenkins. And that introduced me to a new level of physicality and just mental fortitude.
Well, here's the deal. The one thing I'd say about the University of Miami players, the one thing that I do in recruiting, if I'm going out to sign a player, I want to know mental toughness.
Yeah.
Because Tubby, at the University, even living in our house, you got to have some mental toughness.
You can't be soft. You can't be weak.
No way. And man, the mental toughness factor, and those guys were mental tough, and they were big.
Yeah.
They're much bigger than us.
Yeah.
KE is Kevin Everett, played with the Houston Oilers, Houston Texans at the time, hurt his neck.
Yeah.
One of those guys with a neck injury. Great athlete, Greg Olson. You see him on TV.
He's on TV.
He's announcer now.
Yeah.
And Darnell Jenkins was a receiver for us at Miami. Man, look, it was scrap.
Yeah.
You scrap kicking and clawing for every inch.
Swayze said we won.
We didn't lose too many.
Yeah.
We didn't lose too many of them. Let me just tell you. But man, it was always a war.
Yeah. Go back to St. Rose. Growing up, what can you say about living with Papa, my mom, and Auntie Dion?
It's you know what? It was the one thing about St. Rose. If you ever do a history of St. Rose, it was so. I wouldn't call it nostalgic, but it was so back then. I would say it's a little river town. The slaves got freed. It was called Elkinsville, and that's where they let the blacks live. And it's a little bitty plot of land. Like I said, it was 4 streets only. And so the community was a bunch of cousins and relatives. We couldn't marry anybody from St. Rose because we were related to them. You go down the street, it was the Zarangs, it was Tucker, Hilda May, Doris, and all them. You go over, it's Mark Johnson, Violetta, all the people, the Charles families, like the Charles family, the Vanette family, the Eugene family, and the Zarang family, and the Taylor family. Those were all the families, and that's how St. Rose started, along with the Johnsons. But man, my father was probably the most inspiring person, most important person besides Jesus Christ. But man, he instilled in me that he would always tell me, you got something. You don't have to worry about anything, you got it. And he was hard on me now. Yeah. There were things that I had to do that was very, very uncomfortable. Yeah. We were poor, and there might be mice under the house, and I'd have to go under there and kill a mice. Yeah. But it wasn't. I didn't know any better. We were poor, and I didn't know we were poor. Yeah. That's how good our life was. Me and Deanna was talking about it. My sister the other day. Lynette grew up in a little different time. She's 7 years older than us, and she grew up. Man, she had a good grow up. Her thing was awesome. The best thing I can remember about her, one time when I was a kid, she let me watch cartoons, and I put a lizard in her bed. And she drove her crazy. I got whipped for it. That's when you can whip kids. Yeah. But it was a funny. Lynette was like the queen of the family.
I just started this right now, and you guys didn't go to Destrehan.
Nope.
Y'all went to St. Charles.
Yep.
How do you say it?
Borromeo, St. Charles Catholic. When integration started, now Lynette integrated St. Charles Catholic. Lynette was the first black. What? 6th grade, first black, and they failed her. One of the smartest girls in the school, and they failed her. She integrated St. Charles Catholic. My father and at the time my mother, who's still living, wanted us to do something different. He didn't want us to be the same old. So we had to pay tuition. I only went to one school, 1st through 12th. Lynette started in the 6th grade, and for me it was very intimidating because they failed Lynette, and Lynette was brilliant. Lynette was genius smart.
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. So they failed her, and then it worked out, and then she went through and graduated. My mom went crazy when they did it, but man, it was segregation. It was racism. We dealt with prejudice. We dealt with it every day. Like it wasn't like it is today where it's hidden racism. It was blatant. They'll call you out your name, and they'll hit you and fight you. And so growing up, the one thing that we had to do was we had to fight for everything we got. We were in a black neighborhood, and we had to fight for when we come home, because the kids were like, you guys go to that Catholic school, all white people. Yeah. Then when we get on the bus and go to school, you got to fight the white kids. They call you every name except a child of God. And it was a quote unquote Catholic school, but it was tough.
So how did, during that time, are you, and I'm speaking sports-wise, do you know that you're like gifted, because you played basketball, you played baseball, you played football. Do you know, like, from playing with cousins, Uncle Darryl and all of them, and then you go to this school who's predominantly white, did you know, like, I'm pretty good?
Well, I would have to go back. My father played in not only the Negro League baseball, but he also played in the Yankee organization.
Yeah.
And so he was a professional. And so I got pictures of me 6 months old hanging on a clothesline.
Yeah.
You know, they're like, why are you doing that? Well, it was to strengthen me. Everything for me and my father, the reason why I'm left-handed, I throw left because he thought he wanted me to be a baseball player, and he made me pick up everything with my left hand. And so it was weird, but it was good. I knew I was good in baseball.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew from day one, baseball was my first love.
That's funny. Sorry to cut you off, but I tell people, I mean, I went to Division II. I can play a little basketball, but I tell people my best sport was baseball.
Yep.
But
and that's instilled in us because my father would, man, he would teach us so much stuff, stance. It'd be like two things, man. You get a 3-2 pitch. I still remember him saying, hey, choke up on your bat and spread your legs a little bit. You know, just make contact. Okay, now you got to be a contact hitter. He taught me how to drag bunt because I could run.
Yeah.
You know, he taught me how to field. You know, infield. He said, "You're gonna be a left hand." I say, "No." Well, back then, the left-handers were rare, and he always wanted me to be a Yankee. So they had the little short field and left field. The Yankees still do.
Yeah.
So he kind of, because they liked they signed him in their organization. So he wanted me to be that baseball player, and I knew I was better than most people, and I played with both white and black kids, and I was one of the better players in baseball.
So I think you told me the story. You have a pretty good high school career.
Yep.
But now it's time to go to college. And tell the story of how you got to Idaho.
So what happened to me
from St. Rose, Louisiana.
So what happened to me, I had a knee surgery as a junior in high school. I was one of the few first team, you could call it, unanimous all-state receivers.
Yeah.
I took a liking to football because baseball was good, but I still like baseball better. But man, I kind of took it because I was good. I was successful. My hand-eye coordination. I was fast. I was all the things that you would want a young baseball player to be, and I was a junior.
Yeah.
But the curse of the gift, because the curse of it all was, man, I was first team All-State. I mean, some great players on the All-State team and everything, but I had a knee surgery. Mm-hmm. And my knee surgery wiped my spring out. Gotcha. Back in, I think it's 75, 76, the doctor who did my surgery, Dr. Hampson, he's still living. We brought his name up at a place the other day. And back then, you weren't supposed to come back. You weren't supposed to walk. It didn't have the extravagant knee specialist. I just did the surgery, and then he said, now you got to strengthen it. And that was a time where you put a cast on your leg for 6 weeks. And I remember wanting to get the cast off before Mardi Gras, and he wouldn't take it off. He's like, no, you're not going to mess up my work. You're going to. And so all this, and so I didn't play in any spring sports. Uh-huh. So I ended up going into my senior year playing only about 6 games because my knee was on and off, messed up. It was bad. So the letters I was getting from different colleges across the country, I didn't have a scholarship. Yeah. So I had a distant relative, Don Newman, who's a basketball player, who got drafted by the Boston Celtics like his senior year, but he really had a redshirt year or something like that. Yeah. He came home and we were kind of working out, and he was like, "Man, you don't have a scholarship?" I was like, "No, I'm gonna walk on somewhere, Grambling or Southern." My dad's like, "You're not going to Grambling or Southern." Yeah. And so then I was like, "Okay, well, tell me where I'm going." And so then Don was like, took me out, did the work, and said, "Man, you could play." He said, "I know you could play at Idaho." So he called the coach, and the coach was like, "You know what?" y'all like his film? Matter of fact, J.T. Curtis, I still got John Curtis's film. We didn't have film back then, they did. He gave me the film, he said, you gotta bring this film back. I sent the film off and got it probably back when I got there. And he said, I never sent it back. So recently I told him, I said, JT, I still got your film. He just laughed about it. So then we call him and we make the arrangements. And so they say, okay, if you can run a 4.640, and I knew I could run a 4.6, then I'm gonna give you a scholarship. So I got up to Idaho, ran a 4.6, he didn't give me a scholarship. So I was getting ready, prepared to walk on, and had camp, man, and it wasn't a good camp, it was a great camp.
Yeah.
You know, guys couldn't cover me, and so Fred Manuel was my receiver coach at the time, and Jerry Davidge was the coach, and Leland Kendall, he used to coach at Tampa Bay and all those places. They were like, man, look, hang on, you got to get this Pell Grant. You got to get this. I didn't know what a Pell Grant was. I didn't know anything about college. I didn't know you go to college Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and Tuesday and Thursday. I thought college was every day. You know, I thought you just went to school like it was in high school. So Don was on me, man. He took me in, but he was on, hey, you got to do this. Everybody was on me. And so by the end of probably the first week, they said, okay, you got your scholarship. And I was like, okay.
So this is your first time away from home?
First time away from home. I had we've dropped all you guys off with a car full of stuff, bought stuff. Man, I had a suitcase and a backpack, a duffel bag. One suitcase and a duffel bag, and that was it. I had no clue.
What was the papa speech?
You getting out of here. You're going to see a different world, and you're going to be fine. That's going to take care of you for a little while, and you're going to do well. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And I don't have no money now to give you. That's what like, look, I don't have much money, so don't, you can call, but probably
because back then we like collect calls and all that.
Yeah, back then, you can't call. You couldn't call home. Call home what? Maybe once a week or once every so often. And now here's the deal. Back then, my dad was an elected official too.
He was a councilman.
He was a councilman back then, and so he was, he had his stuff going too. I mean, he was very, I'd say famous, but it wasn't. It still wasn't a lot of money.
Yeah.
To say, but it was a good live. Like I said, we were poor and we didn't know it.
So I think I was talking to Keyshawn, your daughter.
Yep.
That's my dog. And we were talking about at one given time or another, every one of us has lived with you.
Multiple times.
So
not one, multiple.
My point is that if you dated back, I was born in 80, Janine was born in 82. Mm-hmm. How old were you in 82? And you've been raising kids?
20.
You've been raising kids since you were 20 years old.
19, started with you guys coming up, 20.
Wow. I don't know if I couldn't have did it.
20.
I think about when I'm 20 years old, I could. And you never had a break though. Like
it's not break or not. It's life.
Yeah.
It's what you put into it. It's how you live. Is what you do. And when my mom and my dad split up, we stayed with my dad, and I had to raise Dion.
And I was about to say that, like, because she came to live with you.
Well, this was
Idaho.
This was before. This was like growing up in high school and stuff. I was the cook.
Because my mom was gone.
Your mom was married. She was gone. And she would cook and she would help, but she had her own obligations. She was married, and then Barry came along, your older brother.
Yeah.
And so she had her situations going, and so I had to botch up some food and do something. Now I would say this to community, man. Hilda May was cutting on her, Grandpa, Daddy Tucker, all of them were great. Doris. They were Tatini, all those people would take care of us, made sure we had food, make sure I didn't have to cook all the time, but it's just doing the household stuff, doing the chores and stuff. It was And I was trying to, do my best taking care of Dion also.
Yeah.
Me and Marcus took care. In order to use the car, we had to take Dion.
So you play Idaho. Mm-hmm. You go to Canada.
Yep. Didn't have the career I wanted. Man, my knees were throughout.
And so you had knee surgery in high school.
High school.
You playing in the Kibbe Dome.
Played at Kibbe Dome.
Which is like playing on concrete turf.
It was concrete. Had a couple knee surgeries there too.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, the doctor put a screw in my knee wrong. I found out years later that the screw was in my knee, and they finally took it out at the Saints. When I got to the Saints from all those years, all those basketball games, and why I was icing my knee. Well, it was a screw in my knee that was put in improper.
So, how long are you in Canada?
Just through camp, probably through the first couple games, and my knees were bad, and then I hurt my shoulder.
Okay.
And when the shoulder injury went, I was like, I can't do this.
So how did that transition? How did you get back to Idaho to start coaching?
So I went from Canada. A friend of mine, me and Dino Babers was the coach at Syracuse. We the two rookies, we in there, we gonna play in the games and stuff. And he had something that he had to leave, and then I ended up, stuck around, and bam, then I couldn't do it because Canada could only keep, I think 7 Americans could play.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like they had practice squad and injured reserve. So I was injured, and I was like, I can't. I'm out of here. I can't do this. I was married at the time. Janine was born, my oldest daughter. So my friend Michael Finley picked me up from Canada in Seattle, and then went back to Idaho to finish. I hadn't finished school yet.
Oh, okay.
Hadn't finished college yet. Had a semester, and I was very humbled because when I got back, the only job they had was garbage man. So I worked.
You used to say that. You used to say,
I worked on a garbage truck. Yeah. And it was really, look, it was fun for me. This was fun about working on a garbage truck. You may wake up, and I'm an early riser anyway, so you wake up 4 o'clock in the morning, you pick the garbage up. Some days it's worse than others, but I was on the back of the truck. I was in decent shape with one arm till my shoulder got back, and then my knee. I couldn't play football probably, but I could get on and off the truck and dump it. And then some days you got cans and containers. Yeah. The holidays were the worst, 4th of July and places like that. Mm-hmm. But immediately I got a job coaching in Lewiston, Idaho.
Okay.
And I started coaching high school and track, high school football and track.
So, what is the relation to Gilby and Erickson? So,
my senior year, my first senior year, because I played as a true freshman.
Okay.
My senior year, when Coach Erickson was the coach, I blew my knee out.
Okay.
And they was like, you can't play again. And I was like, well, I'm gonna play. And they was like, you can't play. And so they would watch me run, in front of school and run. Because the practice field, where their office is sat, the practice field was directly across the street.
It's a big window, right?
The big window. And they'd watch me run, and they'd watch me do stuff. I started off slow, and man, I started getting better and better and better and better. And so finally, it gave me a chance to play. I said, okay, you can play, but you're going to be last on the depth chart. I was like the 9th receiver. Yeah. I went from being the starter to the 9th. So I worked my way back into, by the first or second game, I was a starter again. Uh-huh. Yep.
And so you play for Erickson, but then you coach for Gilby.
But Gilby was the offensive coordinator.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so then, and Gilby was, look, I love Coach E. Now those guys, they're the reason why like Coach Erickson's father and Coach Gilbertson's father, the reason why I even coach, because their inspiration, because let me just tell you this. You can have a bad experience with coaches, and I did, and a lot of it probably was my fault. Yeah. So I was a cocky little kid because I was good. Yeah. And you couldn't tell me nothing, But man, I never wanted to coach. There was nothing about coaching.
So that wasn't when you come back from Canada, it wasn't like I'm going to coach.
This what I said to myself. I would be like, look, if I can get a job teaching, making $42,000 a year, and that's what was about. It might have been $35,000 a year, or maybe 25, whatever it was then. Man, if I ever get to 40,000, I'm gonna be living great.
Yeah.
I want to teach, and I wanted to teach. I wanted to change the world. I wanted to inspire kids. I wanted to, do all the right things. You read books about how bad it is everywhere with, no teachers, no male, especially African American male teachers. I wanted to do that.
Yeah.
And so that's why I took the job. I didn't go right away to be a graduate assistant. I took the job in Lewiston. Yeah. And I was teaching.
So how did the transition happen to get to
the girls in Lewiston, Idaho ran me out. I wasn't tough enough. Look, the ninth and 10th graders, the guys were good because I was the coach.
Yeah.
I could run you more. I could do whatever. And they liked me then, but man, the girls just drove me out of there.
So you went to be a GA?
So Coach Erickson left. Coach Erickson asked me to be a GA. Never did want to. Coach Erickson leaves. And actually, the first spring I got back from Canada, he had me on the staff coaching.
Gotcha.
And he said, look, you can go to school, you can coach, you can be a student, whatever it was. And I was like, nah, I'm not going to do that. And so Eric Yarber, who's a receiver coach for the Rams now, he was the first guy I really officially coached, in college. And, man, good player. Played for the Redskins, won a Super Bowl, and so Yarbs, we could all call him Yarbs, was just, good to have on the team, good to be around. Still a good friend of mine. Mm-hmm. And so I quit. Told Coach E, I say, Coach E, I'm going to coaching. I'm going to teach and coach in Lewiston. I got a family, got to make money. And he understood because, I took a stipend into coaching and I was teaching. I was a long-term assistant. I want to say I taught maybe 2 health classes and maybe a PE class. Yeah. So I was going to get the 3 long-term sub money. Yeah. And then I was getting the stipend for and I don't know how much it wasn't very much. Mm-hmm. And then I was in the weight room, and it was the best until these young girls from Lewiston, Idaho, start cussing me out.
Wow.
Because I made them do the work.
Yeah.
I was a stickler.
So now you fully on the staff at Idaho?
No.
After you leave there, yeah.
Coach Harrison leaves.
Okay.
Coach Gilbertson comes in, and it was either going to be Coach Gilbertson or Coach John L. Smith. 2 coaches. Yeah. Both of them had, they've been successful. John L. was at Louisville in different places, Michigan State. And so Gilby said, look, if I get the job, you're coming. So that's one thing. Certain things about certain people tell you that and I'm listening. He didn't know I wanted to get out of Lewiston anyway, but he said, look, if I get the job here, you're going to coach receivers.
Got you.
You, Tom Cable, Mike Cox.
Wow. Yeah.
And now Cable and Cox were my teammates, but they were younger than I was.
Yeah.
Cable played lineman. Mike Cox was a linebacker. And so we were 3 of the GAs.
So how long before you are official? Not official, but
2 years. So I want to say it was spring, fall, went to the playoffs, receivers played good. The next year cycle was still a GA, was actually finishing up my master's. All I had to do was write the thesis paper. A guy came to watch us. He was assistant AD at San Diego State. And he was thinking about hiring Gilby. Came watch us coach. We coached against Boise State. At that time we had beat Boise State like so many times in a row. Mm-hmm. And he came up and he just kept staring at me. And I kept staring at him. I was like, what's this guy doing?
And you're still a GA?
I'm still a GA.
Okay.
He's staring at me. Now, GAs were different back then because I had more money and I probably could have been a part-time coach. But what I did was I was in grad school.
Got you.
So I was finishing my grad school. Most GAs can't with the football out, but Gilby would say, "Nah, I'll get your graduate degree. That's what you want to do." But I was like, I was really starting to like coaching.
Got you.
And so then Al comes in and we get to then he comes back the next week and he was interviewing Gilby, but he's watching me, a couple other coaches, he's watching me. And so Barry Lamb called me up one night and said, "Hey man, Al want to hire you."
What?
I was like, "Want to hire me for what?"
So wait a minute. So this time, so when we come to Idaho, you're a GA?
Yep.
God, you hit it so well.
What you mean? Hit what?
Okay. You gotta, this is my perspective. So I'm looking at you like he has a family, he's taking care of us. Yeah. Like
I'm a businessman.
So my idea is like, you're like one of the top dogs and all of this.
But here's the thing. We were in title on the books, we were GAs, but there were other things that we did, like the camps.
Yeah.
We'd get pretty good money for working the camps, you know, and it would hold you through. Uh-huh. And we all had the right housing. We all had, you know, it's a college town, and you knew that.
Yeah, okay.
And but we were never called GAs because back then you could only have like say 6 real coaches and 4 GAs. So the GAs were coaching I was in the receiver room. I was coaching wide receivers.
But what I'm saying is, for me being a child, it seemed like you had been coaching for like 10, 20 years.
No,
is what I'm saying.
It was probably 2.
Because I said this when, you know, I did my interview. I remember you coming to Bossier. Mm-hmm. You used to always rent the Taurus, and you gave us like the cutoff practice shorts.
Yep.
And brought us some gloves. Yep. That's back when you could peel the plastic off and they would stick them in the jersey.
Yep.
So, and it's just simple. This is my simple thinking at that age. It's like, Uncle Tiger takes us out to eat.
Yep.
He has a rental car.
Yep.
He's successful. If I don't make it to the NFL, I'm gonna just go be a coach. Like that was my, that was it.
It's funny. I never wanted to be a coach. Gilby told me, "You're gonna be a coach, and you're gonna come coach my receivers. You're good at it," and that's how I got to be a coach. But here's the thing. So Idaho was one thing, but that was San Diego State.
Okay.
That was San Diego State when Al offered me the job at San Diego State, he offered me maybe 35, 40.
Oh, really?
At that time, it was like, golly, I hit the jackpot. Back then, that's how much. I mean, it was a lot of money, and then we were on this California step system where you had to come in low because so many steps, each like say 3 months, you would hit another, because we were state employees.
Gotcha.
So we worked for San Diego State University. It wasn't like later on I worked for the UC system.
Yeah, it's private.
University of Cal. But man, we was hitting them. And so, man, I was moving up to about 80 something real quick.
Yeah.
You know, and then I was, you know, I recruited Marshall and a bunch of other guys to San Diego State. But that system, I may have started off at 32, 35. I was 35 in like a month, and then, you know, it just kept going and going and going and going.
So when did your recruiting expertise light bulb go off? When did you say like, oh, I figured this out?
Well,
was it Idaho or was it San Diego State?
Well, I would help recruit in Idaho all the black kids. They would come in on a visit, and I'd help recruit them. I'd go see them or whatever. But I knew I can relate to them, and I knew I could do it. Everybody told me how good I was, because in Idaho they'd come in. Oh, here comes the Pied Piper. Yeah. He's going to get them, and I would do it. So then, through relationships in high school and stuff like that, I told Al, guy from here, first guy called me, Tom Levine. He knew Ron Mims before I really knew who he was. Yeah. You know, Ron Mims passed away.
Really?
Yeah, about a year ago. Sitting down, he was watching a movie with his wife, His wife goes up to use the restroom and come back, he was dead.
Wow.
You know, I took care of his wife and helped him out. But so Ron Mims said, hey, they got a guy in Louisiana named Tom Levine. I've been knowing him, DB coach. Would you go down to Louisiana and look at this kid, Michael Landry? I don't know if you remember Mike Landry.
Yeah.
Little short Mike.
Yeah.
He's the one who swung the helmet and hit the guy at Miami when we with the big fight at San Diego.
Yes.
And so I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go down and I'm gonna check out a couple others. So coming down, I checked out a couple. I went to St. Aug, I went to Destrand, went to a couple schools. I knew some of the coaches. I knew Darren Dixon. I knew the Destrand coach. I knew the guys at Hornville. Just kind of, you know, putting roots in. I met Billy North from John Ehret, and I kind of knew some guys that was on their staff. You know, went to Booker T, knew a couple guys, Archie Sutton and those guys, knew Kevin Russo. So I knew some of the coaches in the area, and they was like, Coach, you got to come down here. You got to get some of these players. Now, I don't know if they meant it or they didn't.
Yeah.
But that year, I signed Mike Landry. And so it was, first year, it was quick. I mean, your first year turnaround, it goes quick.
Yeah.
Signed Mike Landry. So the spring, Al asked me, because I was in Northern California, I signed Tariah Smith out of Northern California, somebody else. Missed out on Damon Simeon. His son is Marcus Simeon, who's the baseball player, was the MVP of the World Series. And so missed out on Damien. He went to Cal. And so come back. So Al was like, look, we got to give you more area. He said, can you go down to New Orleans and get a player? I said, sure, I'll get one. Come down to New Orleans that spring and see a bunch of players. And I'm like, okay, I like him. I liked about 10 guys that I knew could play.
Yeah.
I think recruiting is all about the evaluation. You know, you got to evaluate your team. You got to evaluate your team needs. And then you got to bring back the right player for that situation. There were a lot of great players down here that I wouldn't touch. And so then I go down and come back and say, man, I can get a couple players.
Yeah.
And so then that spring after that, the rest was history. Then I came back and brought 3 players back. Fred Harris from Shreveport, Woodlawn High School.
Yeah, I remember that.
When you
was
was
his
a
mom
kid,
Pam? What was his mom's name? Pam?
No, his mom was Erlene, something like that.
Okay, yeah. Fred was in
girl. I can't think of her name.
Yeah, I remember Fred Harris.
Fred Harris, top 25 player in the country, Gatorade Player of the Year out of Louisiana. Defensive end, could run, but had problems passing the test.
Yeah.
Then Ray Peterson. Ray Peterson was down here, man.
Yeah.
He was the number 1 receiver. Was on this all-state Picayune.
Yeah.
Time Picayune, and the last one I recruited was Marshall Falk.
Marshall.
And the rest was history.
Man,
Yep.
Quick question. Your guy at Idaho was John Jake?
John Jake.
I remember him.
John Jake, Neosha Morris, John Jake, Leland Allen, and David Johnson. How about, okay, I'm going to give you another one. Casey Dunn Hamburger Buns. You remember him?
Yeah.
Casey Dunn is the offensive coordinator of Oklahoma State.
Wow.
He's been offensive coordinator for years.
Wow. So you start the influx of New Orleans into Louisiana, into
San Diego.
Into San Diego. But you also have some other, you got Darnay Scott, you got Keith Williams, you got Scotty Hammond, Swanee.
Because that was my other areas. So they give you an in-state area and an out-state area. My out-state area was Louisiana.
Yeah.
But my in-state area was Northern West Swanee, Curtis Shear, Jeff Speech. Remember from Reardon High School?
Yeah.
Speech, and it was a couple DBs. Tariah Smith. It was.
Did you recruit D. Lou?
No, D. Lou actually was at Ohio State.
Really?
And he came back to us from Ohio State.
Okay.
He went to Morris High. The 2 black high schools in San Diego was Lincoln and Morris. He was from Morris High School.
You know who used to scare God, I was so scared of Carson Leomedi.
Oh, he's a big boy. That was Mims.
That was Ron Mims?
Yeah, that was
Rolando Stallings?
Ramondo was really recruited from, he was from Virginia or Vermont. I think Ed Smith recruited him. You know, he came. I mean, I don't know what was the San Diego connection.
What was the guy that's in the movies now? He was a D lineman.
No, well, Jamal Duff.
Duff.
He was in
Dodgeball.
Dodgeball.
Yeah, okay.
He's been in a couple of. He was in Django.
That's
Django.
Yeah.
He was in there. Big Duff. Man, he was could have been a good player now.
I feel like that's where I got tough.
Well,
at the basketball court behind the.
Well, that's where we started. If you remember, man, we'd play. We start playing. It was all day Saturdays.
Yes.
We started with the San Diego State crew, man, and you had to be tough because. You know,
I mean, I'm 13. I got one shot all day.
That's all right though. But you had to run up and down the court.
Man, you had some. What? You had some guys. Tell rumor or Marshall was going to UM. Is that true?
Want to save your HOA money on your home services while enjoying the benefits of living in a community? PIN Plus, the ultimate platform that brings neighbors together under one powerful concept, power in numbers. Communities can now negotiate group discounted pricing on essential home services, trash, pest control, pool maintenance, and so much more, all at unbeatable rates. Transform your home service experience today. Visit www.mypinplus.com today for more information.
All right.